Rebecca, thank you so much for being here today. Very excited to have you on. Shout out to my parents. Their favorite show of all time is actually NCIS. I had to say that to you at least one time because they will listen to this episode. But how does somebody actually get into that line of work? Like, I know it's super competitive. I'm sure you had to go through a lot to get there. What was that process like?
Yeah, happy to answer that. And first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm super grateful and excited for today's conversation. And so my route, how I got into NCIS was through an internship, actually. So my degree is in forensic and investigative science. And as a part of that internship requirement to complete the collegiate degree to complete that, I had to have a successful completion of an internship. And
Hmm.
so, of course, I'm looking at crime labs and all that kind of stuff. But I had somebody who's now an FBI agent who said, Rebecca, you need to look at NCIS. And I was like, what's that? Because it was before the TV show, not to age
Hmm.
myself. And he's like, oh, it's the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. It's the FBI for the Department of the Navy. So they service the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps. Like, that
Yeah.
sounds amazing, right? I'm a patriot, and just to serve our war fighters, I think that would be so honorable. And they do so much beyond forensics as special agents. I'm like, yeah, let me investigate, let me dig in. And so everything that I learned about NCIS, I absolutely loved. And so I threw my name in the hat. I applied for the internship, which was this multi-step process, a background check investigation, all of these things, and I got it. And
Hmm.
so I scored an internship at the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and I never looked back. I loved everything about being a federal agent, the curiosity, the investigative work, the mindset, the mission, right? It's not just criminal investigations, it's also counterintelligence and counterterrorism. So that national security flavor, which up until that point I had not yet considered, I was sold. So
Hmm.
after I graduated, I did some other things in the forensics field, and then I became a special agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, Air Force OSI. It's a sister agency to NCIS. So I was
Hmm.
stationed at Nellis Air Force Base for about a year and a half out in Vegas. And then I jumped to NCIS, and that was the majority of my career for about 15 years with NCIS. So that was my route into NCIS. But yeah, many interviews, many panel interviews, background check. You live in a glass house, all of the things to get in. It takes a long time to get in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually know one or two people who have gotten into the CIA and, or at least have tried that process and just know how stringent that is. So I can only imagine somebody in charge of everything that you handled for our country had to go through a couple of things. Can you speak into the resilience that it took from you, the courage, anything that it actually took from you to overcome in order to get into NCIS?
Yeah. I mean, definitely resilience and grit and having a strong mindset, very generally speaking, is so important. And we really try to suss that out through the course of your background check, investigation, and interviews. This isn't all roses. You're going to be subjected and be exposed to a lot of really, really hard things. And I've seen people at their very worst. I've seen all sorts of things. You really get the spectrum of humanity. So you have to have an individual that can be able to withstand that. But also, on the same hand, you got to be able to have good coping mechanisms and
Mm.
good outlets and all of the things. And it's really sink or swim. Like, you dive right in. And by virtue of me having forensics, like, I'm used to crime scene, death scene investigation, things of that nature. That was my specialty. So that was never really an issue. But I think we can all agree that it's never fun to work a child death or something that's, really just tugs at your heartstrings. But for me, I just separated professional and personal. Like, when I step into my role and my position, I'm all in. I know my why and how I'm serving our country and serving our war fighters and being there for victims. And it was something that required courage, but it filled my cup. It was so rewarding to be able to make the sacrifice so others don't have to.
Yeah, no, 100%. And tip of the cap to you for being able to do that work. I had dreams of becoming a doctor once upon a time, and became pretty clear that I didn't have the stomach for a lot of the stuff that I would be seeing each and every day. Is that the type of thing, that constitution, so to speak, the type of thing you think people are born with? Is it something that people can develop? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a really good question. I think people can develop those muscles. I think some people are inherently or naturally like, hey, they can handle things. And, like if they eat something maybe that they didn't like, they're not going to have their stomach turn or like have to run to the bathroom.
Mhm.
But certainly working a crime scene is very different than, that. So I think it's something that you can certainly develop. And as long as you're aware of what you're going into, and then you have exposure to it, and then you continue to have exposure to it, I don't want to say it becomes easier, but it does in time. You kind of get used to what you might see and you have that preparation because I believe the body doesn't go where the mind hasn't been. So I don't have to
Sure.
wonder what it's like to work a scene. I know what it's like and to work a scene or another difficult matter because NCIS is beyond working scenes. And I think the more you do it, it does. I don't want to say it gets easier, but you have those muscles already built and strengthened. And, some are just a little bit better than others, but it definitely is something that you can build.
Yeah. So here's a question. So obviously you're dealing with some pretty intense stuff in that world. And I think just to draw a parallel for the listeners here, so often we go through like periods of time in our life. Maybe it's a short season or a longer season, God forbid, but we're often in places where we need to just muscle through. We get to, you know, grit our teeth and bear it, get through it, and that's often not sustainable for many of us. Like, what did you guys employ over in NCIS to like allow yourself to decompress from being on and in the moment and in the stress of it all?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of resources that we have, generally speaking, and I also think it's also a personal matter on how you kind of harness
Hmm.
that and work through it. But we rely on each other. For any law enforcement that could be listening to this, I mean, it's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood, there's camaraderie. We rely on each other. I have your six, you have my six. I have your back, you have my back. And so, really having that trust built within your team, with your boss, with your subordinates, with everybody is literally a matter of life and death. Like that trust has
Hmm.
to be there. And of course, we have peer-to-peer groups. We have a lot of resources available if someone were to be, let's say, in a shooting. That's very severe, but if that were to happen, and it has, there's a lot of additional resources that are available. And then I think to kind of walk back to the person, for me individually, I love to PT, physically train. So I like to
Hmm.
work my body. I believe emotions are energy in motion. So I like to process them. I like to kind of work
Hmm.
through it. It gives me a clear head. It makes me feel good. It gets my blood pumping, and I just feel more like myself. It gets me out of my head. A meditation is something that I didn't do my entire career in NCIS. In fact, I wish I would have. I just started in, let's say, 2019 timeframe. So the last part of my last few years of when I was an agent. But meditation is so centering and grounding, and I wish I would have employed that modality much earlier in my career.
Hmm.
And just talking to people, right? Like, don't just keep everything bottled in. I'm fortunate that my husband's an agent, so he gets it. And so I am very fortunate that I have a person that I'm able to speak very plainly and openly about if I did have a bad day. He gets it, he understands it, and sometimes it's just getting it out of your head, just getting it
Yeah.
out of you, and that's it. I don't need to do anything else. It can be that simple.
Yeah. No, and for the folks listening to this, like, we're talking NCIS, but you could be going through any type of traumatic event in your life. Maybe it could be the loss of a loved one, could be something far worse than that that isn't coming to my mind currently as an example, but anything you can do to get it out of you, like literally and metaphorically, whether you're verbally processing it with like a licensed therapist or someone you really trust to hold space, or I'm a devout journaler at this point. Every single night before I go to bed, I just completely empty out onto a sheet of paper. Rebecca meditates. Yep, she's holding up her journal right now. And for both of us, it sounds like exercise is a heavy part of the regimen as well. I'm a far better person in my day to day when I've gone for a run, like just flat out. And so definitely appreciate you sharing your tidbits and advice there. Obviously, you're no longer an NCIS agent. You have transitioned into being an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author. What was that decision like, leaving behind a career that obviously was difficult to get into? I'm sure you had a lot of pressure to stay. What was that decision making process like?
Yeah, I am asked this all of the time. And I am 3 years just now, this month, 3 years out from being an agent. So when I left NCIS, I was the assistant special agent in charge of our Marine Westfield office out in California. So I was second in command, and things were great. I loved my job. I loved what I did. I loved everything about it. But I had these intuitive nudges for a couple of years leading up to that what would it look like if I served on a greater scale or a
Mhm.
different scale? And so
Mhm.
I just started to ask myself a series of questions, like what would it look like if I went to another alphabet soup agency? There's all of the DEA, ATF, FBI. I've worked with all of them. What would it look like? What would it look like if I didn't have the badge and gun? What would it look like if I went to the private sector, which is what I did? What would it look like? And so ultimately I landed on, I want to serve in a different way. I want to be pushed and challenged in a different way. And that
Mhm.
was very hard because I love what I do. I'm very passionate, as I'm sure you can pick up. I love NCIS. I love our military. I love our country, but I can still love all those things and do other things. And so it wasn't immediate in my mind that when I left NCIS, I would create and form my business Tactical Harmony. That was not in the picture. But when you move, the universe moves. And so I joined a tech company. And then from there, like all these other things started to line up. And I realized on a global scale now how holistic leadership and mindset answer every challenge. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter everyday change management in tech to a crisis in NCIS to a personality conflict. It didn't matter the country, the sector, the industry, the level. And so I'm so passionate about leadership, and I've always known that and felt that. I love leadership. That I created my business and then the podcast, and then I just everything kind of fell into place, and it was a lot of ease and flow, a lot of hard work. I didn't
Mhm.
learn entrepreneurship when I was studying blood spatter analysis, but I got it because my why was so strong, and I was convicted. I knew this was what I was supposed to do, and it became more clear when I started to take different moves. I could have never done that with NCIS. So it's kind of funny how things work out in the end.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So let me ask you this. You're talking about leadership concepts here. Is there a one above the rest, maybe a couple that have the biggest parallel between NCIS work and the coaching that you do now?
Leadership concepts.
Yeah. Like, is there any above the rest that you're just like, this is the biggest thing? This is the North Star for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, mindset. Mindset is everything. How you think, how you feel, how you act. It starts with how you think, that determines how you feel, which determines your corresponding action. So being so radically aware of your thinking. So it's really emotional intelligence, right?
Yep.
The ability to be aware of your thoughts, feelings, all of the things, the ability to then regulate it. Because I can be aware all day that I'm angry or frustrated or insert whatever negative frequency emotion, but then it's quite another to be able to regulate that and go for the
Yeah.
walk or meditate. Very different things. And then, of course, the ability to interact with others, that relationship management, and then to be aware of you, to be aware of your feelings, your thoughts, and all of that. And so that's a key component. That is essential. It's a non-negotiable for a successful, meaningful, impactful leader. You have to be able to work on your EQ. The higher EQ, the higher the impact. I have seen incredibly smart people. I'm sure their IQ's off the charts. Their resumes could be amazing, but their EQ is not high. They
Hmm.
can't lead themselves out of a paper bag. Their teams walk all over them. Their squads are all awry. I mean, it's chaos because they're not regulating, they're not aware, and they're certainly not projecting that. So I would say emotional intelligence, and then just really leading yourself and leading by example. I'm very, very big on, if you look at my brand anywhere, awaken the leader within, because it starts with you. If
Hmm.
you can't lead yourself, you cannot lead others. And I mean that in every sense of the word. How I interact with you, my finances, my days, my mornings, my habits, everything is how I lead myself. Am I setting that example? Am I setting that tone and culture for my team, for my family? I lead my family. Even if you're single, you're still leading yourself and your friendships and anyone you interact with. So it's really that ability, holistic leadership, to inspire and influence yourself as well as others around you. But it starts with you. And I see a lot of amazing, talented professionals who enter the leadership ranks. They're working on everything external to them instead of starting with themselves. Not saying they won't have success, but it's going to be limited because it's always going to come back to
Yeah.
you.
I feel like I'm hearing you say it actually comes back to personal responsibility above all else.
Yes.
And I want to double down on something you touched on, but just to drill down, you said it pretty eloquently. But I also felt like I heard you say it's one thing for us to have all this information, to read the books, listen to podcasts like this one or like yours. It's another thing to actually do something about it and to make the choice. So, like, we can monitor the thoughts that we have. We can be like, wow, I'm in a really negative, angry space right now. What do I want to do about it? But we actually get to choose to do something different for anything to happen differently the way we want. And I just think that's so important. I heard it on another podcast. This is pretty blunt, but someone once said, if information was all we needed, no one would smoke cigarettes, yet new people take up smoking every single day. And
Yes.
and so it is actually checking in with ourselves and then doing something about the data that we're receiving.
I completely agree. It's information. I mean, insight without action is useless. And
Hmm.
so you gotta move, you gotta take action, you gotta execute because knowing is not enough. I can know that I should go to the gym and I'll feel better. But if I'm not moving myself to get to the gym and go to the darn gym and take the class, it's not going to mean anything. And so that pertains to the smallest of things and it pertains to the biggest of things in life. Dreams die without execution.
Hmm.
They're dead. If your passion is just a passion, well, if I'm not living it, if I'm not moving with it, I call this soul aligned ambition. It's dead. It's useless. And if we do not grow as humans, we become extinct. Look at anything around us. If you're not growing or evolving, you become extinct, you die. So we're actually happiest as humans when we're moving and when we're progressing in life. And so what's on your heart and mind could be very different than what's on mine. But if it's there for a reason. And so we got to move with it. And I always like to say, take inspired action because I could be busy and not making progress. I could do a lot of things to
Correct.
stay busy, right? Like, amen.
Correct.
Like bold neon, lights on that, like underline that. But if I'm taking inspired, which means this is moving the ball down the field, this is getting me results, this is adding value to myself, my family, my team, the world. I'm going to double down on that. I'm not going to be focused over here on whatever else that could be distracting. No, I got to double down on what I'm actually doing that's giving me the results and moving the needle. And so it requires radical honesty, introspection, and continuous movement. like
Yeah.
continuous movement.
Yeah. And folks, we've done multiple episodes on this show about SMART goals, about how to set visions for yourself, how to create goals to work towards them. Just to go in real quick, the M in SMART, that acronym, measurability, is my favorite part of goal setting because, to your point, it is your way to measure the movement and it actually keeps you inspired. I find, like, I love seeing like my average mile time decrease as I'm training for an upcoming race, or watching the debt on this pay down journey I'm on, watching that decrease over time. So little tricks like that, we're not just giving you frameworks and tools for no reason just to make you excited. We actually want you to use them because that's how you're going to move the needle on your life. Is there
Amen.
a tool that you give your clients or in your public speaking engagements that you feel like supports people in creating better lives quicker than anything else?
Gosh, I mean, it's really tailored to the business or the person or what they might be currently facing. But one thing that just immediately comes to mind, because it's something that you shared, is celebrating the incremental victories. So maybe
Yes.
I'll take that to there's always a step in front of you. So it can be overwhelming, right? If you're thinking of the marathon, I know we give that example a lot, but it's so relevant. We can all understand, wow, that's a long time. Wow, that's a lot of miles. But it starts with a step. And every single one of us have a step in front of us. And then we celebrate the hell out of that. We want our brain to associate the dopamine, the serotonin hit that, wow, it feels really good. And your brain starts to associate that reward because we're meant to do hard things. Like as humans,
Mm-hmm.
we're meant to do hard things. We feel good when we accomplish something. I know that I can pick up my glass and drink some water, and that's not very hard. But maybe if I needed to drink X amount of glasses on a certain day, maybe that would be harder for me. Or I usually run a mile. Okay, I'm gonna run two. Wow, that's harder. So it's something that you can do, you can fit in. It's a step you can take, but you're making it harder and you feel really good about it. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's how you build the resilience and grit muscles. You don't have to wait until there's some sort of adverse, crazy crisis situation right now. You can do that ahead of time. And so, I mean, I have so many strategies, but those are always like when someone's really overwhelmed, I'm like, just take the first step. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what to do. Don't get caught in the tyranny of how. There's a step in front of you. I want to lose weight. Get a gym membership. Buy a workout tank top, a workout pair of shorts, whatever. I mean, it's that small. You cannot underestimate those incremental victories and then be so happy that because you just got 1% better and
Yeah.
then focus on the next percent. And then it just keeps going and going and going. And guess what? Results compound. You are going to be bigger, stronger, leaner, and faster in time. We can never underestimate those first steps because then they lead to the 26.2, which is the marathon.
Yeah. Yeah. And folks, the only thing I think I'd add is don't compare yourself to others. Don't compare yourself to who you see on social media. There is a very natural trap that so many of us fall into when playing the comparison game. Like, oh, I want to be in better shape than I am now. And then I stare at Dwayne the Rock Johnson all day on Instagram and I feel so bad about myself that I don't actually allow myself to get started. And,
Yeah.
like, trying to be a little bit humorous here, but it's true. And I know because I have fallen into that exact trap myself. And so, to Rebecca's point, you're only ever competing with who you were yesterday. And so, as long as you are taking the next step, no matter how small, you're moving yourself in the right direction, even if it might not feel that substantial. But the effect of compounding, like compound interest, like if you do it every day or every week or every other day, whatever the cadence is of whatever the project is, you look back in 6 months or a year and you're going to see all this growth for yourself. And that's magical to really let that land for yourself.
Truly. It really is. It's amazing. And comparison really is the thief of joy. And I think it's very natural. We may do it without even realizing it, which is
Mhm.
why the power of thought and mindset is so important because you're always aware of what you're kind of thinking and feeling, and you check yourself, which goes to having that ownership and radical accountability of your thoughts, of your action, of your inaction, of everything in between. But it's really you versus you. And I call that's leadership. I just did a podcast episode where I titled that Leadership is you versus you. Are you going to win today or are you going to make excuses? Are you going to compare yourself, like your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10? Or are you going to just roll your sleeves up and get after it? And it's really kind of having that battle with yourself. It gets me revved up. Maybe you ask yourself different questions. Whatever it is that works for you, do it. I mean, when you look at any athlete, they're jumping up and, like NFL, they're jumping up on the side of the field, they're getting excited. I mean, anyone does that, like any sport, because they're getting themselves amped up, they're ready, they've rehearsed mentally and physically. And so there's so many components to that. And so why does leadership or your life or business have to be any different? It's your craft, it's your game, it's your sport, your whatever it is, and really kind of bring that energy to it because energy is our life force.
I talk about, basketball fairly frequently here as well. Many people, I should say, have seen the Michael Jordan documentary on Netflix. He used to amp himself up by making up lies in his own mind about how he was slighted by somebody on the other team. Might not be real, but it would just get him amped and ready to go, score 45 and win the game, like whatever it is. And we only have one life. So, like, as long as what you're up to isn't hurting anybody else, do your thing, folks. Like, this is your story that you're writing in real time. And speaking of stories, Rebecca, you are actually the author of a book, and I'd love for you to tell the audience about it and what value it brings to them.
Oh, yes. So I'm smiling. You can probably hear it in my voice, or for anyone watching, you're going to see it. So, my two passions in life, leadership and dogs, I combine them into a book, and it's called Unleashed: Holistic Leadership Insights from Our Canine Companions. And I love deriving wisdom from everything, and it may seem unconventional to many, but I have always had dogs. I've always loved dogs. I've experienced dogs personally, certainly professionally, canine, and I am so impressed by dogs. And I had this idea many years ago of actually, I was still an NCIS agent, and I was sitting at a rooftop bar in La Jolla. For those of you know San Diego, it's a very beautiful area in San Diego. And I just had this idea. I was sitting with my husband having lunch, and I was like, what if I wrote a book about dogs and the many leadership lessons they teach us? And he looked at me like I had 5 heads. He's like, who are you? And I had never indicated any interest, never thought about it. I'm still an NCIS. I hadn't even thought about leaving NCIS. Like, it was just so, it was like a download. And I got out my phone and I started taking notes and I outlined the chapters. This was years ago. So now,
Mhm.
fast forward to last year, 2024, I was meditating and I came out of it a meditation and I immediately started to journal, and everything I wrote down came to life and fruition. And one of those things surprised the hell out of me was I'm writing a book this year. And it was March of
Love it.
last year. That's how it happened. And then ease and flow. When you claim it, it will be. I affirmed it. It's happening. I'm not guessing it. I have no idea how to write a book. I've written articles. I'm published in scientific journals for forensic stuff. That is a very different world. And I just did it. And so I dive into all the lessons from discipline to grit and resilience to adventure and curiosity to gratitude, mindfulness, love and connection, all of the things that dogs, they organically display. They do it unapologetically and so authentically. There is no guessing or wondering. It is all them. And if we tune in and we pay attention, there's so many lessons that we can learn. And it ties in so beautifully and integrates with holistic leadership and all of the lessons that we can do as personal leadership, which then translates to I'm in a traditional supervisory or leadership role. And so it is a passion project. She's out in the world. I published it December, so a couple months ago. and it's on Amazon, and I'm still pinching myself that I did it. And yeah, it's my two passions combined in one.
Can you speak into the resilience that it took to write a book from beginning to end? Because somebody that I look up to in the writing space, Anne Lamott, wrote a book called Bird by Bird, all about writing books. And she wrote in the book, writing your first book is like pushing a peanut across the floor with your nose. Curious if that was your experience, but I would love for you to speak into that a bit, like what it took, because I've heard many people mention how difficult it is to actually sit and do that.
Yeah, I had none of those pertain to me, although I'm totally visualizing me pushing a peanut with my nose. So thank you for that laugh. No, it wasn't at all. I mind mapped, and I had an outline based on my mind map. I never experienced writer's block. I went through it. I knew what I was going to say. I had all my stories and personal accounts that I wove in with the lessons and themes I wanted to do. Not once did I experience it. And I didn't have a time frame for it other than it's going to be out within the year. So I decided this
Nice.
in March. I started writing in April. And when I commit to something, I'm like a dog with a bone. Funny. I'm all in. It's happening. And so what I did was every Saturday or Sunday morning, usually Sunday mornings for a couple of hours, that was my writing time. I was not interrupted. I had no phone. I had no one coming in the door. It was me, and it was just writing for hours. And I did that every single week. A little bit during the week, but I'm so busy during the week that I wanted pure I just wanted my attention fully on this without the distractions of Slack and messages and all of the things. And that's how I did it. To me, it was easy. I would do it again. I never encountered anything bad with it.
Hmm.
And in the self-publishing part, I had to figure it out. But again, if your what and why is strong enough, the how comes. I figured out Amazon, KDP. I got through it, and it was an easy process. And so I actually had the opposite experience. But you have to have the commitment of time. Because I could have easily said, there's so much I want to do on a Sunday morning, which there was, but nothing was going to compare to, I am going to get this book out. I'm so excited. I'm happy. The energy I poured into it. I know this is going to help and serve people, dog lovers or not. And that trumped me wanting to go out and whatever on a Sunday morning. And so the reward that I have is far greater. So it does require a sacrifice of your time, but you
Mm-hmm.
get the long-term benefits of whatever you're trying to accomplish.
So something that I think comes through and just listening to you share your experiences, you're very process oriented. You have a great and tremendous amount of follow through, clearly. Otherwise, you wouldn't have accomplished everything that you have. How can people who maybe struggle with process, struggle with creating structure for themselves, would maybe struggle to even just sit down and write a book or even just have the wherewithal to block off time? Because that's pretty unnatural to some personality types.
Yeah.
How can people learn to input those systems that allow them to do something like write a book?
Yeah, I mean, certainly your input's your output. I mean, I'm using your word, but I would say it's getting leverage on yourself. And so I didn't need to be that extreme because I've been doing this for a lot of years. But for clients, when they're like, how do you get the motivation? And I'm not feeling it. Insert excuse after excuse. And I say that with love, but it's all excuse because everybody has time. People have written
Yes.
books with 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. I don't have any kids, right? But that doesn't mean it's any less inconvenient for me to sit down when I'm doing all of the things. Whatever that is for you is getting leverage on yourself. What would it look like if I didn't get my book out in the world? If I didn't help that one person, because that's the prayer and intention that I put into the book. Please let this book, even just one person, be benefited from. Let them evolve on their trajectory, improve their leadership, save themselves, whatever that
Mm.
is. That is the energy and intention. And I prayed and I put that energy into it. If I didn't put it out, if I didn't sit down every single Sunday and take a couple of hours and do it, that person won't be impacted. And that's selfish. And so now I'm putting it back on me. Like, that's selfish of me to not dedicate a couple of hours of my time to know that I can meaningfully impact or save someone's life. Like, I make it very extreme and have that leverage on myself. That can look different for many, many, many people. Many people. It could be your child. I want to set an example for my baby. I want him or her to look up to me and be like, wow, did she crush it in life? And they're watching everything we do more than they listen to what we say. And maybe for a lot of people, it's children, or it could be your spouse. I want my husband or wife to be so proud of me, or my parents. Like, I want them to know that I came from very humble beginnings. I have two amazing, badass people from Ohio, and they are factory workers, and they put food on my table, and they got me through college. And I was the first person to have a college education in my family, and I'm so proud of that. And so I want to continue to make them proud in whatever way possible. Whatever that fuel is to put in your tank to get you from where you are to where you want to go, put more in there. Whatever it is, keep putting it in there. And for me, it was just to know that if I didn't do this, then I'm not helping people. I'm not serving them. And shame on me if I didn't do that. And so it was a short sacrifice of my time, which I didn't even view it as a sacrifice because I enjoyed doing it. I was laughing when I was writing. I was crying when I was writing. The human spectrum is in this book, y'all, just fair warning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beautiful. It was therapeutic. It felt good to like do this, even though it was a solo experience. So those would be some of my suggestions for people. Like, what would it look like if you didn't do this? And usually those consequences will outweigh if you were to stay in place.
Wow. Yeah. Folks, if you have any projects, any dreams that you're struggling to get off the ground, whether you're struggling to get, the time on the calendar to work on it, struggling with that daily motivation, pause this podcast, rewind it for the last 3 minutes or so, and then listen to everything Rebecca just said again, because what she just said is so, so important and true. And wanted to reflect this back to you. I'm somebody who has historically struggled with prioritizing time, prioritizing myself, prioritizing really everything but me and my vision and my dreams and what I want to do. And it wasn't until somebody pointed out to me that every time I say I can't, every time I have a vision for something, I say I'm going to do something, but then I come up with an excuse. I'm no longer making it about the other person or the impact I want to have in the world. I'm making it about me. I'm actually making my limitations, my excuses, my reasons for not prioritizing myself bigger than whatever it is I say I want to do. And that changed my life. And so I'm glad to hear you say it in your own way, obviously, but it's such a critical mindset shift in terms of me becoming the person I am today. And, I strongly encourage the listeners to take that in, journal on it, possibly meditate on it, because if you're making anything too much about you, you can't have an impact with anybody else out in the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And there's 4 things. I can, I will, I must, it's done. I
Yep.
can, I will, I must, it's done. And just, if that resonates, awesome. If it's something else, abundance flows to me easily, whatever it is, right? Like, but don't just do an affirmation. It's got to be an incantation, like getting it into your body. And like, I'm moving my body right now for those that are listening. Get on your rebounder, go outside, jump up and down, do some push-ups. I always changed my physical state before I started writing. I didn't just come into my office, which is where I'm sitting right now, sit down casually and start to write. I brought
Hmm.
the energy, I brought my everything because I had to change that physical state. And biochemically, and I won't go into neuroscience and all of those things, although I totally could geek out about it. I joked I should have went down that route. It makes a difference. It
Hmm.
totally makes a difference. Your language, your focus, and your physical state, that try it. Like that is so important. And so I made sure that I did that. Before any big meeting, before a big client, before speaking, I am amping myself up. And I'm meditating, but I am getting my body into that peak state. So I'm peak performance, peak state, peak mindset, and I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm going to give it my all. And I did that exactly with writing. And it could be with whoever is listening to this, whatever they might be procrastinating or maybe just thinking about and haven't started yet. I can, I will, I must, it's done. And get yourself in a peak state and get after it. You've got it.
So just to ask you directly, Rebecca, what is motivating you? What's inspiring you currently? Is there a big goal that you're chasing at the moment?
Mm. Well, helping and serving people, like there's no greater reward for me to see someone bust through that glass ceiling or limiting belief or whatever it is that they have. There is no greater reward for me. That continuously motivates me. But I would say right now, a core focus for my business is public speaking. And so I love public speaking. I've done it for years, starting in NCIS, everywhere from a field office to an overseas location to the Pentagon to you name it. My audience has ranged from 4 stars to lance corporals to civilians to CEOs. And it's a passion of mine. So, right now, I guess a goal of mine would be for my business to really kind of branch out and really focus and double down on that, which excites me because then I'm able to serve in a different way. So that's my goal.
I love that. I love that. And, we're going to unfortunately need to start winding down this call, but where can folks connect with you, hear your podcast, learn more about you, and possibly work with you?
Yeah. So Tactical Harmony is the name of my business. And if you look up Tactical Harmony, you're going to find me. That's the name of my podcast, which is on Apple and iHeartRadio and Spotify. It's my website, tacticalharmony.com. And then on LinkedIn, if you look up my name, Rebecca Fitzsimmons or Tactical Harmony, you'll find me. Same thing with Instagram. It's pretty much Tactical Harmony or Rebecca Fitzsimmons, and you will find me in all of my current offerings and services.
And as always, ladies and gentlemen, we will have Rebecca's information made available in the show notes wherever you are catching this podcast. So please be sure to connect with her. Also, grab the book Unleashed. We will have that linked below as well for you to grab yourselves a copy. What better way than to read about dogs and learning more about ourselves, right? So, Rebecca, I want to acknowledge you for being somebody that we can all look up to, for being just a driving force of energy, of goals, of can do, of not making excuses. I think so many of us want to rationalize why we aren't doing the things we say we want to do. And just to put it nicely, you cut through all the crap. And I think that that's something that the folks definitely are benefiting from today by having you on the show. And so I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you to the listeners. I'm so grateful to be here. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you are doing for this world and spreading these good words and messages. And yeah, thank you so much. It's an honor.
Absolutely. And final question we have for you: what are you acknowledging yourself for today?
Oh, look at you. Lightning round. I didn't anticipate. Gosh, for this might sound silly, but I have been going to bed early all week.
Let's
And
go.
it's something that I want to celebrate and recognize. And it's not something that I normally do like super early. And I made it a point to do that every single day this week, to include Sunday. And I feel so good. I normally have a lot of energy. I'm sure that's shocking. But I like, wow, you feel so good and rested. And so I'm proud of myself and I want to recognize that I did it every single day, even though I had every reason to stay up later. I didn't do it.
I love that. And you're setting yourself up to be the best possible version of yourself for all the people that you want to serve as a result.
You got it.
I love it. I love it. Well, folks, this has been another episode, Your Inside Track to Success. Share this out with at least one other individual. The cost of admission's always free. I know you got value from today's conversation. Please do your part. Get messages like the one Rebecca has to share out to as many people as we can. Be sure to hit that bell icon as well so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And we'll catch you next week with another guest or message. We'll see you then.